What's up guys, Andre here, and today I'd like to show you the basics of the Ionic framework. Ionic is an open source UI toolkit for building mobile apps using web technologies. Earlier versions were based on Angular, but version 4 is pushing towards a more framework agnostic approach. As of now, it's still heavy on Angular, but versions for Vue and React are being worked on. Ionic does run in a web view, so it isn't as performant as frameworks that compile down to native code. However, in my opinion, it isn't a big deal if you're building CRUD-based applications that aren't as interactive as, say, a game or something like that. So we'll be building this Reddit clone, which I've built several times in other mobile frameworks on my channel, and all it does is pull from the AWW subreddit, lists them out here in this list component, and if you click on them, you'll see a higher resolution image. So let's build this using the Ionic 4 framework. Okay, so let's go ahead and install and use this. So I'm going to assume you know the basics of Angular, and if not, I just finished a series on building a to-do app in Angular. So the first thing you need is the installer, Ionic CLI. So make sure you do npm install -g Ionic. I'm not going to do that since I've already done that. So Ionic version. Okay. And now we can make use of this Ionic start command, which will make a new app. And there are 3 types, I believe. They're just template starters. There's one blank, there's one called tabs, and there's one with a side menu. So I'm just going to stick with the blank one for now. And let's go ahead and do this. And let's call it, what do you want to call it? Ionic Angular example. And let's do blank here. Okay. Okay, so that's done. Let's go into it. And then we can run Ionic serve. And we'll get the boilerplate that it comes with. Okay, so here is the default page it comes with. It looks a bit weird on desktop, so let's go ahead and use this. So let's go ahead and open this code up in VS Code, and we can take a look at the folder structure. So the folder structure is very similar to a Angular CLI app. Everything is in source app. And here is the default component. And here is the home component. So very similar. So if you go into home HTML, this is where all that markup is. So if I change this, save that, then this should auto refresh. It takes about, you see on the side here, maybe 4 to 5 seconds. So it's a bit slow, but we'll bear with it. Okay, so now all you have to do is make use of the components that Ionic comes with. And these are web components, so they are framework agnostic. And there are a lot of them. So let's play around with a few of them, and then we'll create our mini Reddit clone. So if you open up the API reference here, these ones have a better description and some better examples. So let's just make a label, for example. Just go there, and there are a lot of examples here. So let's just take this, and this would just be a standard label. Paste it into our code. Let's put it underneath here, and we should have a label. Cool. So yeah, if the recompiling is a bit slow, I'll just edit that out. So yeah, let's take a look at a button. So as you expect, there are different colors of buttons and different fill values and all of these variants. So let's just take the default one, and if we just put it in here, and you can make a click handler like just how you would in Angular. So just click equals, give it a method, say handle click. And then in our TypeScript, we can add that. So just in here, we can just do handle click. And let's just alert something here. Handling click. Okay. Save that. Okay, so there it is there, and there you go. Okay, so one more example component, just so I can show you ng model for two-way data binding. So let's look for input here. There we go. So there are different types of input. I like this floating one. So where's that floating one? There it is. So we just copy this, paste that in our code. So here, and I want to put this on its own line, so we can just wrap it in a div. Let's make another div here and space that in. And yeah, so let me just put an ng model on this. Let's specify it as a type of text. And let's put ng model equals, say, address or something. And let's go to our TypeScript, add that as a string. And I'll just set it here as a blank string. And as we click the button, I want to show that value. So it should update because it's bound to ng model. So this.address. Okay. See if this works. All right, so I'm going to type some stuff. And I'm going to press this. And there you go. Cool. Okay, so I want to take a look at some basic CSS here. Actually, before that, for all the components, so if we go here, there is the iOS version, and there's also the Google Material Design version. So by default, when you're in development, it defaults to Material Design. So you're going to see this version. But if you want to see the iOS version in development, then you have to change a setting. So if you go into our code, source app, if you go to app module TS, we can just add a config option in this for root method and just put mode and specify iOS. So you can do that if you like, but just make sure to remove it if you do plan on publishing it, because if you do it this way and leave it this way, then it's going to show up as iOS no matter how you publish it, even on Android. So just do this for development purposes. And there's also a way to run it in the iOS simulator, which I haven't done, but there's some documentation in the FAQ. So yeah, I'm just going to leave this out for now and just stick to the default material design. Okay, so let's take a look at some basic styling and some basic CSS. If you go here to layout. So there's some basic structure here if you want to make use of these. And it just has, the most basic one is just header, content, and footer. And there is the markup for that. And there's other ones too, like a tabs layout and a menu layout. So the grid, it's its own version of grids and columns. So if you need to do this in your app, just follow the docs here. For example, if you want 3 columns, you just copy this. Let's put it in our app and see how it looks. So right here, let's put it after this. And that should have 3 columns. So there's the 3 columns there. And there's also CSS utilities for alignment, all this stuff. But there's also Flexbox utilities, somewhere here, all of this stuff. So for example, it's going to copy some example code. I'm just going to show you justify content space between, which I personally use everywhere, and it just spaces items out. And I usually use it to put something left aligned and right aligned in the same row. So I'm going to paste this in, and it just makes use of this attribute, which is basically justify content space between. And then the two flex items will go, one will go to the left and one will go to the right. So this should be on the left and this should be on the right. So there you go. Cool. Okay, now let's start on our Reddit clone. So I need a list component. So let's look for a list component. Let's use the basic one here. And this looks pretty good. It's going to grab this stuff and paste it in our code. See how that looks. Okay, cool. I'm just going to get rid of all of this stuff we were playing around with, and I'm going to change the title as well. So let me just get rid of all this stuff. And I think it's just all of this. And let's change this to Reddit clone, like that. Okay. So before we start making AJAX requests, I want to make use of the Angular router so we can have another page when we click on one of these items here. So in previous versions of Ionic, they had their own router implementation, but for version 4, they are just using the Angular router. So let's go ahead and make use of that. So I'm going to make a new page here. So I'm going to say Ionic generate, and very similar to the Angular CLI. If you just do that, you can select, I want to make a new page, and let's just call it detail. Okay. And let's go to this page when we click one of these items. So I'm going to go back to here, and let's just do it for this one. Let's put a click handler on this. So click equals, let's say go to detail. Okay, so, and then in my TypeScript, I'm just going to use this one here since I deleted that already. So go to detail, and we have to inject the router here. So let's go ahead and do that. So right here, I'm going to make a constructor and say private router should be that one. Okay, so it imports it, and let me just close this. And to navigate to that page, all we have to do is use the router. So this router.navigate, and it's just an array of the page name. So in our case, it's detail. Okay, let's see if this works. Okay, so I'm going to click on this, and it works. Cool. Okay, let me just change that title in the detail component. So in here, let's just say image, because it's going to be an image, a higher res image. And now let's work on the AJAX requests. So I'm going to make a new service. So I'm going to do Ionic generate. Let's say service, and let's call it Reddit. It's going to be a Reddit service. And let's go ahead and use that. So in app module TS, I'm going to make use of that. So let's make sure to import that in here. So it's going to be HTTP client module. And let's make sure to import that in here. So import HTTP client module from Angular common HTTP. Okay, And let's also inject that in our Reddit service here. So right here, I'm just going to do private HTTP client. And which one is it? Okay, so let's make a method here to retrieve the posts from the awe subreddit using this HTTP client. So I'm going to call it get posts. And it's just going to return this HTTP .get, and this is the endpoint for the Reddit API. If you just append .json, so www.reddit.com/r/aw.json. And recently, for some reason, I never had to do this in my other videos, but I have to append this option, raw JSON equals 1, or the higher res images don't work. So make sure to add that. Okay. And now in our home component, we have to inject the new service as well. Sorry, not new service, Reddit service. So that should be a Reddit service. And I don't know why VS Code is not importing it for me. There you go. And let's make an ng on init. And let's use that service. So this.reddit service.get posts. And let's subscribe to that. So this is just like .then in a promise. And let's get the response. And it's of type any. And let's just console log, see if we get anything back. And I'm going to console log the response.data.children. So I already know how the API is structured because I've done this several times already. If you don't, just inspect the JSON that's coming back, and you'll see that this is the array of posts coming back. At least hopefully. Let's check the console, see if this works. Okay, so I'm in the wrong component. Let's go back to the home component. So get posts is not a function. What did I do wrong? Okay, so to fix that, I just added an observable return type here and make sure to import it from RxJS, and that seems to have fixed the problem. So now we're getting our posts from the Reddit API, and here they are. So now we just have to render it out on the page here. So let's go ahead and do that. Back to our home page template, and we can make use of directives here and just iterate over these ones. So let's do an ng for here. So ng for, okay, we have to make a posts variable. So let's do that. Let's just type that in here. Let's finish this first. So it'll be post data title for the title. Okay. And in our TypeScript, we have to make a posts variable. Sorry, not in our service. In our TypeScript. So I'm going to make use of this since we're not using this anymore. So let's just call it posts. And I'm just going to make it an object array. I should make an interface, but this is just a demo and I am very lazy. And I'm just going to set it to an empty array here. And then once this resolves, then we can set it to response.data.children. And now everything should work, hopefully. Let's see. Okay, so there are all the titles from the awe subreddit. So I also want the image thumbnail here. So let's go ahead and do that. So back to our template. And right before here, I just want an image. So I'm going to do image. And let's bind the source to post.data.thumbnail. And the alt can just be thumb. And I also want to add a class on it, just so it is rounded. And I'll just paste in the CSS for that. Let's just see if this works. Okay, so it does work. And I just want to make this a bit smaller and make it rounded. So let's open up our SAS file here, and I'm going to paste in. You saw that I added a thumbnail class here, so let's just paste in some CSS for that thumbnail class. And just add some styles here. And let's see if that works. Okay, so that looks pretty good. This one doesn't have a thumbnail, but I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so now we just have to pass in one of the properties coming back from the API to the other page. Usually you would just make another API request on this page, but I'm not going to do that because the information is already here. So yeah, we just have to pass in the higher res image link to this other component. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go back into our homepage template. And right here, where we're calling go to detail, I'm going to pass in the entire post as well. I can just pass in the image link, but I'll just pass in the whole post. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to go to my TypeScript. And I'm going to accept that. Let's accept it. Post any. And now I'm going to go to my news. Okay, let me just put it in here since I'm already in this method. But I'm going to put a new property on my news service. Sorry, I keep calling it news service. Reddit service. Like this. So Reddit service. I'm going to call it post. And I'm just going to set it as the post coming in here. So that way we'll have access to it in the other component. So I'm just going to save this. Go to my Reddit service. I am going to add a post here of type any. Okay, and now I'm going to go into my detail page, the TypeScript here. Sorry, that's home here. And I'm going to inject the Reddit service. Reddit service. So that did not import. There it is. And on init, I'm just going to set this.post to this.reddit service.post. So I'm also going to define a post on this component. And now on the component, sorry, I mean the template, we can just add that in here. So I'm going to use, you can use an image tag, but there's also an ion image tag. It's basically the same thing, but it lazy loads the component. So I'm going to do source equals, so it's post.data.preview.images. It's the first one, .source.url. Again, just look at the response JSON that's coming in if you want to know how I got that. So yeah, let's see if this works. I think I did everything. Let's see. And some of these won't work because some of these are videos, but most of them are images. So let's see. And there you go. You can put a back button here too, but I'll just use the browser's back button. So that should work now. Let's check out some other ones. Awesome. So we successfully made a mini Reddit clone and learned the basics of Ionic 4. So obviously these are just the basics, but hopefully enough to get you started. The docs are pretty good and provide insight onto things I haven't looked at, like publishing your app in the app stores. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next one. Okay, thanks. Bye.